Good afternoon. Welcome to another panel at FEBRABAN TECH 2025. Our topic is green taxonomy in Brazil. It can also be called a TSB, Green Sustainable Taxonomy. I love acronyms, so we can say that TSV to have like a shorter name. Just to give you some context before we call our guests, Sustainable Taxonomy Brazil is part of the plan for economical change of the federal government on regards to the Ministry of Revenue. And it's one of the main points, pillars of this plan. So taxonomy, or TSB as we say in Portuguese, being one of the most important pillars from the Revenue Ministry, is relevant for the financing sector as a whole, because it will help in the ranking of all economical activities that are aligned to environmental and social and sustainability aspects, so that financial resources can be applied to these activities in such a way to help in the transition for a low-carbon economy. It's also important for the country as a whole because it will help in the visualization of these activities and to attract financial resources. So, closing this context, if you haven't followed this discussion about taxonomy before, it's under construction as we speak. It's been through public consultancy in December, from December to March, and FEBRABAN, along to financial institutions, participating in this build-up. And we are going to publicize everything around August. So it's a new discussion in the sector, and we'll try to discuss how taxonomy will influence strategies of financial institutions in fostering creating new products and new lines of investment, and the perspective for agribusiness as regards taxonomy and how that can impact on lines of credit, and how Brazilian competitiveness can be influenced from this global point of sustainable finance regarding taxonomy. And in order to help me to answer these questions, I would like to call on stage Wendel Macedo, that is Executive Manager in Sustainability of Caixa Econômica Federal, Teresa Vendramini, she's a cattle raiser and a counselor of Brazilian agribusiness, Fabiana Costa, Superintendent of Sustainability at Bradesco Ban, Natalie Vidwal, Superintendent of Guidance to Investors and Sustainable Finance and CVMM, and Vitor Santos, Director of BTG Pactual.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you. Please take your seats.
Para nosso painel aqui. Então eu gostaria de começar.
So I would like to start by asking you a general question so that everybody can participate 3 or 4 minutes each, okay? I would like to start by asking how can financial institutions get ready to prepare for TSB in investment strategies and for financing, and how this operability with other taxonomies can impact the investment flow. Wendell, would you like to start? Okay, let's see. Just to getting a little bit of the context that you've brought, a little bit of history of whoever's here. Well, we've been here for almost 2 years. We've been studying that. At Caixa Econômica Federal, we've had this discussion with FEBRABAN. There is a small move of advance that can come. I'm sorry, I think the microphone is cutting. These short discussions we had in this time, we're trying to assimilate in some processes. So small adjustments in some products. And an important point to think about that when we talk about taxonomy, we were just talking at backstage. It's connected to literacy. It's a challenge for the market as a whole, and also Caixa. It's to bring the taxonomy in a more practical way for everybody who is involved. And speaking of interoperability, this is going to be essential to allow because it allows comparisons among the many names that banks give to whatever is sustainable, and even for this construction of some international frameworks, and would also allow that international investors can bring resources to Brazil. So that's my contribution for now. Thank you, Wendell. And even so that we can hear a little bit, because we know Caixa Econômica Federal is a state-owned bank, and it's important that we make this connection. What is important so that we can make this connection? Okay, hello everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here to talk about sustainability. Congratulations, FEBRABAN, to bring this topic. We cannot talk about sustainability without connecting that with technology and innovation. These topics are essential so that we can leverage on that agenda. So just to supplement what she mentioned about taxonomy, I think we have to do some things we need to do first. So we're discussing taxonomy patterns to rank our businesses. I'm very proud to see, I see friends here of a journey of sustainability. And since 2014, we've been talking about what is a sustainable taxonomy for the financial sector. So I'm very happy to see the discussion on a national level, a very high level in the regulatory system. So the first step is to work on the demystification and literacy of what we're talking about. Because after all, we work with real economy, and the challenge here is to connect what is taxonomy with the daily practice of business agencies. So taxonomy is important not only to support the financial sector and to bring thrust for financing for active sectors that bring a positive aspect and that goes along with sustainability, but also to develop and support all sectors that need to fit into this taxonomy. We've been talking among the panelists that talking about a taxonomy for a group related to sustainability is like preaching the choir, but speaking about that to the real public is a challenge.
Literacy is also important, connection with the real economy. We need to understand that we are working in a real context, what is really feasible, so that we can work this whole governance as a corporation, as a finance company. We need to have this robust, transparent governance about what we consider to be a taxonomy and something that needs to be, for example, need to be reported to the market, because only by doing so we will be able to make this money flow in the market. We will also need to support innovation and technology so as to develop the whole sector, and also to monitor and classify everything. And also I can see that when it comes to interoperability, but I like the word connection. We have this intersectorial connection, and we are working the financial part, the public sector, in the industry, so that they can all to work together for a taxonomy that looks at Brazil. And so that we can also bring this to the world, so that we can attract more assets and investments, so that we can develop our businesses more and more. In a practical manner, we are talking about governance, reporting and transparency and connection in an alignment that has this common focus on sustainable development. Wonderful, Fabi. Thank you so much. And so as to talk about this, would you talk about this, Victor, please? Oh, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I will try to add something to what my colleagues have mentioned. This is almost impossible, actually. But the first part of your question deals with how this institution can be prepared for that. I come from BTG Pactual, but this is an investment bank. We also have this credit area, other businesses, and we look at sustainability with this opportunity bias, related bias. And we also see how we can be prepared as a financial institution, having some sort of classification so as to identify these opportunities. And of course, about the issuance and everything, we have the sustainable framework this year. We also introduced this in our own framework, so that with this SPO, so that we can update what we see as a sustainable operation. It goes from PMA, medium and small companies led by women, and also transport, electrification of means of transportation for renewable energies. And also reporting is very important. So once we structure the whole way to support this, we have this annual report, we have the public policies, sectorial policies that are available, for example, and this well-structured um, this whole reporting, and also some acronyms that might sound unfamiliar to some of you, but we have this whole standards and comparable indicators for other areas. So this allows us to look at our institution in a critical manner so that we can create this whole infrastructure so that we can leverage this whole taxonomy for the production of more opportunities. And of course, the risk identification, all of them are here. Our client portfolio, of course, and as you said, it is a part of the responsibility of the companies in order to fit in this new taxonomy. And when it comes to the connection with this foreign taxonomy, we know that these people are very demanding. So this whole history that we have when it comes to classification and partnerships with other development institutions whose demands are very specific to their own classifications, this is very helpful to us. I would say that this bank that is experienced in that, well, they will be in the forefront of that. But the existence of a taxonomy, just for to help you to understand, but there are tons of taxonomies all over the world, and none of them are the same. So there is no need to compare them constantly or really look for these lines of development and make these comparisons and ask our clients or internally how we can produce the right KPI so that we can investigate if we are seeing this with the Asian or European lens, if this operation is sustainable or not in a certain company, and this will become more and more common from now on. So the first step is to create this reporting structure to identify risks internally, and later on, we can have this more common interaction with foreign institutions so that we can perform this frequent classification. Perfect, Victor. And this is very important because it's important to highlight the importance of interoperability to attract foreign capital as well. So if our taxonomy does not match theirs, of course, there will be some difficulties in order to obtain these alignments. So three institutions, they have their own specificities, but similar challenges. We hear and talk to them every day, right? But sectors that have different challenges, but as important as this is the agribusiness. So, Teresa, please, I would like to hear your opinion. Well, thank you, FEBRABAN, for inviting me and bringing someone from the livestock sector, because and I'm very thankful. Tomorrow I will be in on my farm. So it's a pleasure to be talking to you at FEBRABAN Tech, talking to you. And this is really interesting because I like what Victor said. The first part of his question was about how can banks be prepared for that. Well, they have already done that, right? As a agricultural producer, I would like to say that this has already happened. For example, the crop plan for this year. Producers all know about this plan, Last year, under this administration, this federal administration, as we're talking about green finance, look, those out of these livestock farmers, those who cannot be adequate to this green agriculture will get these lowered interest taxes and rates for our sector. And this has been around for a while. I found this in one of my folders, and tomorrow I will go to my farm. And I said, okay, I must keep this on me so that I can be sure I can have this at hand there. But how do I view this taxonomy? These comparisons, as you were mentioning here, comparing Brazil to other countries, this is an opportunity for us. And there is a case that I love mentioning that happened to me. You know, livestock farmers, which was the Boishina or China ox. Some years ago, we started to sell oxen to China. And we were always doing that if we were prepared for that. And what does that mean? For example, for those that were raising different types of cattle, what we had to have the right pasture, for example. We have to have the whole team prepared for that. And that was about money. I'm talking about money, opportunities for livestock farmers, and that was really so good because everybody wanted to sell oxen to China. Some farmers close to me said that they wanted to be part of these businesses as well. And today, I also see this opportunity for us. Is it easy? No, it's not. Of course, this is not. When it comes to Brazil, before coming up to the platform, this Brazil where we see these agribusiness figures, 20% of them will export these millions and millions of dollars and also making tons and tons of crops, for example. But 80% of the agribusiness in Brazil comes from properties, from small properties. So these people needed to be part of this game now. So that's why we need to be adequate to this new format. And what about this taxonomy? We will be organized around social responsibility. We know about it, right? That's what it deals with. I'm learning from you and with you, and also the whole environmental issues. It won't be easy, of course, but this is a game that will be positive for livestock farmers to play. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks for mentioning about these Chinese examples so that we can design this process in practical terms and leave this theoretical part aside so that we can show a practical example that this is a long-standing program. And Natalie, please, I would like to see your view as a regulator. How does CVM looks at this preparation and connection with the global market? Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, participating at FEBRABAN TECH. And I would like to show you this context of capital market. The taxonomy is an essential tool because it will bring technical criteria to classify activities and projects. Today, we see that there is a lack of standardization, which generates low comparability between products and financial instruments tagged as sustainable. And this low comparability can result in some market-related distortions. How can I compare a green A debenture with a green B debenture if any issuer will apply a different methodology or method? There will be competitive asymmetry and informational asymmetry, which is not good for the development of this agenda. And because we recognize this, once we edited our sustainable finance policy, we established that one of our strategies and strategic guidelines is to support the government to develop a taxonomy, a sustainable, sustainable taxonomy, because we understand that this taxonomy will bring the technical criteria, standards, and methods that will be applied in a harmonious manner by all the issuers so that we can develop transparency, trust, and comparability on the part of these issuers so that we can advance our agenda.
Então, quando a gente olha para mercado de capital,
And when we look at this capital market under the lens of resource owners, this whole process of adaptation to the criteria of this taxonomy, this will be similar to what we see today when it comes to implementation of ISEB standards, which means the sustainability reporting criteria. So we need high commitment and engagement in these not state-owned companies. And in order to do that, they will need to improve their governance policies and internal controls and procedures. They will need to hire specialized teams. This is no trivial task. This will not happen overnight. We understand how complex this can be, but this needs to happen. And regulators, of course, will support this journey because we understand that this is an essential tool. The taxonomy needs to be applied. And another highlight is that we see that there is room when it comes for looking for financing for social impact related projects. So it's important to have a taxonomy that it can be easily applied and easily understood. So this is usability. We are working together with the Ministry of Finances in the interinstitutional committee because this taxonomy needs to look at these 2 points. It needs to be easily understood and easily applicable because once this happens, we can mobilize this capital, private capital in the national market towards these projects related to social impact. And we will also be careful so as to make sure that our taxonomy can match other taxonomies, for example, the Colombian, European, Mexican taxonomies, so that we can have this common ground with them, so that we can attract this foreign capital as well. Because once people buy this Brazilian product tagged as sustainable, they need to understand what they are buying. That's why it's important to make sure that there is this interoperability. And we are being very careful to make sure that this will happen.
And it's nice that we're closing this first part with the vision from the regulator, because when we talk about international taxonomies, we also have the same connection, like with the financial institutions, central bank, all the sectors of real economy. If we don't see eye to eye, if we don't walk together, this we will never understand and will never seek for a flow of information. But the information is important, it's key. I think we're closing this first block, but I would like to come back to Teresa, that you talked about of opportunities like and the oxen from China. I would like to understand how you are getting ready for these criteria. Is there any discussion going on in the sector, or do you have committees or working groups? So how do you discuss, how do you see this specific discussion about taxonomy and with a vision of opportunities? Thank you, Cynthia. As we mentioned, the farmer don't even know what taxonomy is. That's true. And speaking for myself, I've learned just some time ago. And I don't have a problem saying that. So I'm talking about taxonomy. So how can we think about the future? Future is today. So, okay, we have lots of technology, but the future is today. So I did my homework, and with the definitions of taxonomy, I saw 4 important points that we are already doing. And if not, we're willing to do. So it's on the to-do list. One of them is to incentive the transition to green economy. Another one to promote reduction of emissions. So if somebody's demanded to do that, that's us. We apologize, we are having problems with the connection. So this is something that they ask for us. And something else, it's to strengthen the climate agenda. And the last, that it's quite relevant in my sector, to strengthen sustainable development. So at the end of the day, these 4 pillars are one thing, because we are demanded to work within sustainability. And then again, what are we doing? This is nothing new. If you walk around in Brazil, it's not in the state of São Paulo, I think the whole country. Transition for green economy, regenerative agriculture. That's something else that Brazil has done on a small scale. I've done that only in LP, but I can't handle do LPF. But we have that. SAF. And if you did in the state of Pará, this is Brazil, this is real. This is going on. And there is something else that's going on that we have at FEBRABAN. Technology is our business. And it's not only this technology that lead large machines and all that. If I rotate my cattle with the same efficiency in my space, that's technology. I can improve location. And when we talk about 20 to 80% the small producers, we're talking about education in Brazil for these people can join this. There is another point that we are way ahead if you understand, if you have the proper training using bio inputs. When we go on farms today, I'm so surprised. I've been to Mato Grosso do Sul shortly ago. And they said, well, we have a factory for bio inputs. He's been doing that for a long time. So what do we need? Do we want to finish soil and water? For God's sake. This is what I take proper care. So I fence my oxen so they don't step in the river. This is a process that we've been going through. And there is something else that it's under discussion. A lot of this in this government, but it wasn't before, recovering degraded areas. Everybody knows that. Speaking for myself, I took 3 steps. And what is that? Money, investment. So let's talk about the suffer plan, the harvest plan. So how can we get the interest so that we keep recovery and keep moving? And the last point to talk about intensification and how to move on, how to progress. That is the cherry on top, that it's not easy. And I haven't managed to do, I want to do it. And I am a technical person. It's having like a certification. This is the cherry on top. And we are moving towards that direction. We've been doing a lot. Oh, it's so nice to hear these examples. And that connects to what Natalie brought regarding the usability. Because lots of things are being done, but not necessarily have the name that the rule would like to have. So these internal connections are very important. Banks are free to talk to their clients to understand what activities are so that they can put that in taxonomy, and it's not locked. They need to include the small ones. They cannot be excluded. If we lock too much, we cannot move forward. So it's important to talk to all sectors and to understand what's being done. So is it the name that we just need to adapt? So what should we do? Let's look at the project. So let's see what we need to do to have the proper ranking. So these examples are excellent. And I really liked what she mentioned, that she said that banks are ready. And I totally agree, because at FEBRABAN, we've had many talks to contribute with taxonomy, and we went to your houses, to your farms to understand. So we know what's being done. And then, Fabiana, I would like you to tell our audience what Bradesco is doing, how you are incorporating the TSV in risk analysis and opportunities in the financial products that you already have. Excellent question. And it's really good to speak after Teresa. We've been working together for a long time. She brings a very important topic that it's like financed emissions, green economy, green agriculture. And this journey at Bradesco, it hasn't started last night. We've been doing that for over 20 years, and how we work with the client. So when I see her saying that, okay, I'm a cattle raiser, so our team has the cattle raisers at the front. And when we think about ILPF, so integration, the farm, the forest, and we talk about engagement, bringing the concept. But when I say that banks do a lot, that's for sure, and that's a journey. And this journey at Bradesco is our strategy. You can't talk about business without considering sustainability. Sustainability has proved to be that we need that to improve our business models to 100 years more. So I'm sure that the bank will still be here. And what is important here, we started that looking with our client at the core. Even before we talked about emission information, they improved their portfolio. And it was there and bringing support to the client. In 2021, we released our first goal for sustainable businesses to guide 250 billion to business having a positive impact using sustainable taxonomy. We've always had this major concern to rank and to position the market, to show the market what we were doing. And the great result that shows that Itaú, actually, I'm sorry, Bradesco is at the forefront, is like having the anticipated service. And we reached our goal of 250 billion goal in the past. And when we talked to our council, it was unanimous because we truly believe in our power and to leverage that topic. And then we raised our goal to 300 billion up to December. And why December? Because we believe that we have to be aligned with the market. So we participate. I was able to coordinate the taxonomy team at FEBRABAN, and we are expecting to have this taxonomy in the long term because we work and we do believe in these connections with our regulators, our partners, and our metrics must be feasible and showing that whatever Brazil has in concept and also to our clients. It's really nice to hear that Teresa learned what taxonomy is quite recently, because that's the idea. We are here, we're talking, it's the second auction. It has seemed like to restore degraded areas. Not everybody knows about that. About 2 weeks ago, we had part of our clients in the agribusiness, along with the treasurer, to talk about like, what is a degraded area? What are the impacts? What are the objectives? We have a team at Bradesco that focuses on sustainable businesses. And I usually tell my team, say, listen, if you stay here, you need to be along with the commercial, with the clients. So we've been working on this journey of education and engagement so our clients understand not only what taxonomy is, but what a business of positive impact is, what is sustainable business, and how we are contributing with this agenda that it's so important. So yes, we do a lot. And taxonomy is here so that we can have a standardization in the sector. We have a major concern with transparency at Bradesco. All our operations that are labeled go through an SPO, that it's an external verification done by third parties, because as financial institutions, we want to show the market what we are doing and how we are contributing to that agenda. But all our clients should have that transparency that we can show everything. So transparency, learning together, and developing the sector is part of a journey that hasn't started last night, but 82 years ago. And as we evolve, sustainability will follow suit. Excellent, Fabi, excellent. Wendell, I'm going to change the order so that we can ask you the next question, so that we can understand how Caixa Econômica Federal is adapting credit policies to be aligned to the TSB criteria, and if you are considering creating new lines of credit for projects that are meeting all the TSB projects. In my previous talk, I mentioned that since the beginning of taxonomy discussion, we're trying to internalize some criteria and whatever can be possible to evolve with products. So in 2022, we had an internal methodology to classify products, and that it's expected in the taxonomy for FEBRABAN. And by revising the strategic planning, that it was at the end of 2024, we paid special attention to sustainability. And to prioritize that is to have the TSB concept in our methodology. So we're also going through a revision of internal taxonomy that envisions to incorporate all the concepts and all the presets of TSB. And based on that, and your talk that you mentioned, aligned to a plan for ecological transformation, Caixa had brought a new agenda for ESG, and PR SAC at SAC at Caixa, we have creating new products. They have this bias. So it's almost like a concept that when we revise and create new products, they need to think about the possibilities first, or modalities or destination for those sustainability. So answering the second question, yes, we are thinking about new products because we realize that as you evolve, you start viewing new possibilities and opportunities. And in order to attend these business opportunities, we need to go through creating new products with that purpose. Excellent. It's great to know that you are one step ahead of us, that you are considering all that. And then, Vitor, to close this financial institution trio, just like you were planning, does BTG have any plans to develop financial products that are aligned to TSV? And how do you think that can impact and bring new investors, both national and international investors? How long do we have? You can use your 4 minutes, okay? So
É muito difícil falar.
it's hard to tell whatever goes on internally without sounding like dull. I try to bring what our view of where we want to be, of what perfect is. You mentioned about products and services or adapting the arrival of taxonomy and thinking about a transformation in business of new opportunities. Well, what we've been doing for some time now, that it's part of what I mentioned in your first answer, is to structure an ESG area that usually does that it's capable to identify, for instance, portfolio, what are the sustainable operations, and how much exposure we have with each operation that we rank as sustainable. Apart from that, we can identify if we have any additional due to a fostering line. So I think it was 22 billion that we had. We can select which ones can fit. We apologize, we're having problems with the audio.
De reporte.
Regarding
Tá falhando.
reporting, you're not
Acho que
hearing
melhorou.
properly. Now it's working better.
Além
Okay.
disso, eu acho que o reporte é muito importante.
And reporting is very important because it's important to have these public information such as annual reports following the standards, so that we can standardize the participation of a few agreements of which BTG is also part of. It was a TNFD and
Então isso
other
nos dá uma
agreements.
visão do que
So these
tem apontado.
also helps us to see where this market is going towards
Então vem pouquinho
the
de
final destination of this market.
estrutura interna
So this whole internal structure
adaptada
is
para
perfectly adapted to receive this new
Eu acho que é
ranking
importante.
system. It's also important to say that based on these experience on international lines, so the IFC, ProArco, and others, because these are the ones that we captured abroad, and there are some different criteria, so we cannot consider everything that we as BTG think that is sustainable. They have their own demands. And this coming back and forth of criteria and information, and the whole adequation of these billions in investments that you think it is sustainable for these thousands of initiatives, will also help us to have this differentiated experience. So we know exactly what they want, and oftentimes, and this is very important because this is a great lesson, it's important to know how we can estimate this data for the foreign investors, because they are used to receiving this and thinking about these policies and internal structures in the companies. How does CVM guide the capital market in the adoption of TSB, ensuring integrity and transparency of these disclosed information?
Como eu falei, a CVM está participando.
Right. As I said, the CVM is part of the interinstitutional committee of the sovereign taxonomy in Brazil, together with the other financial institutions. So we have SUSEP, Profic, and Brazilian Development Bank as well, and other institutions as well. And we are monitoring this closely and actively. The GET, MRV, the Working Group of Reporting, Monitoring and Verification, MRV. Because the MRV GT will create the guidelines for the implementation of a portal, a system that will be called MRV system, which will operationalize the taxonomy, which will serve as a data lake so as to contain the whole information on the activities that meet the criteria, those are eligible and aligned to this taxonomy, and the whole information on the financial flows and the evolution of these financial flows aligned to this taxonomy. And the very taxonomy was designed, and this is part of these public consultation manuals by means of this staging. So there will be many stages of implementation, which will also take into account the proportionality related
Pensando que
criteria.
aqueles
And
participantes
those participants, for instance, those that are eligible that have a greater operational or financial capacities, they will be the first ones to adapt. And the capital market comes into play at this part because we need this real economy to be involved first. So then we can involve financial institutions so that they can collect data from those that participate in this real economy so that they can be part of this portfolio, and we can align the whole taxonomy. So during this first stage, the first group that will be part of this wave one in the pilot project are the companies listed, the open capital companies, and excluding the small companies, and then the non-listed companies, and then the open capital the
CVM está
open capital companies also, including the small ones, and that's what we are closely monitoring.
frentes.
And here we see two different priority fronts. So we first need to understand what we need to do so that we can improve our regulations in order to integrate the taxonomy related criteria to this capital market. And the things we have to do is to understand how we will receive a certain data, especially the
Financeiro,
financial KPIs
taxonomia,
linked to taxonomy.
isso, as regras de mercado de capitais.
And also we need to see, for example, how we will collect this data so as to feed this MRV portal. So I'm talking about financial indicators, which will measure this whole flow, how this financial flow is advancing,
Alinhada à taxonomia
aligned with the taxonomy, how it evolves over time. So at CVM,
formulário estruturado.
there will be this whole structure form in order to capture this data, and this will be definitely developed together with our MRV GT, and we will support the collection of data and also its transference to
Esses indicadores
its transfer to the MRV portal, especially when it comes to green income and green capex.
apoiando a
We also need to support this assurance because as we are talking about these financial
usar os auditores
performance indicators, we can use independent consultants and they will be supervised by CVM and accredited by us so as to assure this type of data when it comes to the financial performance indicators. So we are also working to support them in order to
vinculados à taxonomia.
talk about this financial performance
Nathalie. Eu
indicators,
aproveito
especially those related to the taxonomy. And FEBRABAN does share
da
this
economia.
same vision when it comes to the economy in real because I needed to report it first. Otherwise, you won't have the right information to consume, and this can generate distorted results. And this is one of the things that was demanded by the banking system, and I just would like to emphasize that once again.
A gente já está se encaminhando para os.
And we are approaching the end of this panel, and I would like to use these last minutes to ask you a question in this conclusion round, and you can also answer and tell us your final comments when it comes to transformation.
Dos objetivos da taxonomia.
So one of the objectives of this taxonomy is to create this basis for the production of a standardized and reliable information, as Natalie commented. And do you consider the taxonomy as a helper to identify more precise socioeconomic factors in investments? Because this is not only about the flow of information, but when it comes to classifying and mapping them out, this is an early stage. Do you think that this can contribute to this process as well? And we can start with you, Fabiana, please, and then we will
Nossa,
listen
passou
to
super
the
rápido o
rest
painel,
of you,
bastante
okay?
conteúdo.
Okay, so a lot of content in this panel, right? It's very important to answer this question because We already have this regulation in the
trouxe aqui a própria questão
financial sector, the PRSAC, GRSAC. So also the central bank in Brazil has these social and economic and environmental risks, and all this agenda has been very well developed, and the taxonomy will now make it even more robust. But it's important not to forget these existing parameters. Our sector has evolved in the country. Our regulator has looked at this international context and brought to Brazil these important aspects, especially when it comes to the climate, social, and environmental risk management. And it's important to say that there is this connectivity between the financial system and the other systems, because all, all these banking teams say that they have their own sustainable business goals and they have their own works. Well, we are all working in the same country, so we need to standardize, and this is very important. So risks start to be clearer this way. It's also important to be verifiable, because if an operation is an ESG operation, this contributes positively. So this must be verifiable. So at Bradesco, we are already concerned about this. That's why we are working with the SPO, so that this can be adequate to the market and verifiable. So the taxonomy corroborates with that. So Annalie also mentioned about the systematization. Banks now look at these fitting in the criteria, and now we need to look at our portfolio of credit line of credit. And we also needed the real economy to do so. And we also have so much information, and we needed to understand the materiality of this sector when it comes to FRS, SCB, and these whole letters and acronyms. Well, they all have to do with sustainability. If we cannot demystify this and make it practical for those who are working with that, we will not be able to cover our system and serve people that needed to work with this emission data. How many companies have these GEE inventories in their company histories? Of course not. So we need to work with this education and granularity and engagement. We also needed to mirror our system uh, on these international taxonomies. We also need to bring this competitive advantage. This is a year where we will hold the COP here in Brazil. So how will we position ourselves? There is a great opportunity to position our country well, not only saying that Brazil has a great potential for decarbonization, but why do we have this? How can we quantify this? And how can we work in a connected manner with multi-sectoral different visions and thinking collectively about this Brazilian development project? And now Teresa will comment on these risks. Do they help when it comes to assessment? And please, your final comments as well. I see that we are running out of time. I'll be very brief. For the Brazilian agribusiness, as I said, this is an opportunity, no doubt. And when it comes to this situation, we are working with the lands. We want to be productive. We want to intensify our activities. This has to do with pain and love. Well, pain. First, I will tell you a story in the state of Pará, because there they forbade, for example, one of our meat companies there. For example, they had this chain that stopped buying meat from this specific slaughterhouse, and everybody was actually complaining about this. And why? Well, but this is a fact, actually. We have been learning through the pain of respecting, participating, and experiencing the importance of this taxonomy, because it's not only about the banks or whoever is speaking about this. No, this is an old story. And love, what about love? I am a farmer, and 99% of the properties are in the hands of the families. They have been in the family for many, many years. This is a matter of love. So when it comes to love, when it comes to production, we need to care for water resources and for land resources. We need to think about the future. The future is important, and this future must be relevant. What are we talking about here? This must be a green future, sustainable future, extremely productive. So no doubt this conversation that we are having here is actually very relevant. And as the girls and the boys here mentioned, we have to take it forward. We need to take it to the whole Brazil to listen to our message. Okay, thank you so much, Teresa. And we have learned so much from you as well. And it's important to keep these connections and doors open so that we can
Diálogo evoluindo.
continue evolving this
Wendel, por
intersectorial
favor.
dialogue. Okay, Wendell, please. All right. Beautiful words that are so those who work with sustainability also have the same words in their hearts. So thank you so much for your
Estava pensando
participation.
aqui, né,
So thinking about these
temos
what you
aqui,
said,
além da questão do amor, mas é
besides love,
implantação da
the implementation of TSB in general will generate a series of challenges.
talvez o principal desafio
The greatest of all, in my opinion, is
para a economia
to
real. A gente falou um pouco
bring
disso
it
também
to
ali.
the real economy.
Quem está do outro lado da
Whoever's on the other end understand what it is and what it is for, and to make it connect to what we have regarding sustainability. So this is a topic that will walk along with us. So if at Caixa, if we follow this concept,
deu branco.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
E o meu fone está falhando toda hora.
And my headset is cutting. Okay, but what I was thinking was to finish.
Eu vou falar
O fone
sempre.
desconcentra.
Yeah, because it really distracts you.
Não, tá falhando muito aqui, Cíntia.
Pode.
Yeah, I really have to take it off. Oh, we can hear you.
Como palavras finais, assim,
So as my final remarks, I understand that the most relevant thing is to emphasize what I mentioned, that it's a challenge we have ahead of us, but banks are somehow ready. You've been working for that construction of a model that it can be applicable to our national reality.
ao longo assim dos próximos anos vai ser também
And in the coming years,
feliz de
it will be very nice to see that it's been implemented and we can have good results. So I apologize because it's a bit challenging to speak when the sound is cutting here. Oh, nothing to apologize. Absolutely, and I totally understand when I mention we get distracted, but it was great. We understood everything.
Suas considerações.
So, Victor, your final remarks and managing risks.
Claro. Eu vejo que a taxonomia
I see the taxonomy brings
de
opportunities
construção de uma
to build a new relation, a long-lasting relation of trust in the many parts of the market. Because when we talk about sustainability, especially with new markets and new industries,
apenas uma planta.
it's not only one plant that produces like sustainable fuel for aviation. We're talking about a whole chain, a chain that must be trustworthy, that must have support to develop.
Eu acho que algo que
And I truly believe that's something that it's good to point out when we talk about sustainability in sustainable activities. Many of those have a seal or have a label of what we call the green premium or green bonus when it's we have value in the market,
resiliência
but also the resilience that comes along with the activity. So regulatory changes, technological changes, perception of market. So we see that with physical climate risk when we talk about adaptation.
esse fator eu acho que ele é importante.
So this factor is important because it brings a long-term value for these activities, for these new industries.
Taxonomia tem a possibilidade
Taxonomy can create subdivisions of these more resilient industries for a low carbon economy and that it's more sustainable. That's where everybody wants to go. So these are my words. Okay, so Vitor, Natalie, so that we can finally close.
Bom, de novo eu vou bater na
I'm going to say the same thing. The taxonomy must be an efficient tool of easy understanding
fácil aplicar
and easy application,
a gente consiga atingir essas
so that we can reach the expected results, which are standardization, transparency, and level for comparison.
atinja, né?
So considering that we reach these goals and this ambition, and we are working hard on that regard,
Taxonomia vai ser
taxonomy will be a very efficient tool so that we can map risks and opportunities that are associated to social and environmental and climate topics. And there's more. Taxonomy is another tool that is supplementary for the financial reports regarding sustainability. And this is good. It's good to have these supplementary reports and to understand how these technical criteria are connected
Alinhados à taxonomia, eles estão traduzidos
and how they are financially translated into these reports of sustainability. So this connection is very important.
a gente tendo uma
I mean, if we have the proper risk management with taxonomy, and then we can have the financial management of those risks and opportunities that are about the environment.
penso positivamente que a
So I am positive that taxonomy will reach its goal. We have complementary studies.
penso que
I believe that if we can measure how the evolution of financial flows are doing aligned to taxonomy, we'll be able to reach two things: to create a positive effect, especially if we can prove that social environmental projects have more impact and have more attractive,
movimento positivo
and to have a positive move to foster other activities and other criterion for taxonomy,
desse mapeamento
and to understand where the resources aren't going, but they should, and what to do to cover, to eliminate this bottleneck. So if we can have this BRV portal, have the flow to capture data, I truly believe that we will move forward significantly, because we'll be able to get all the public policies, and we'll be able to make very well informed decisions.
isso é muito bom.
And this is excellent, so that we can move on that agenda.
Nathalie,
Wonderful, Natalie. Thank you very much.
tá claro que a gente tem
It's crystal clear that we have a great challenge ahead of us working together. I think the three main words that you've brought were connection, trust, and incentives. This will be our North Star so that we can make this work, and it will bring very positive results, not only for real economy, but for the financial sector and our country as a whole. It's really nice to see your engagement in all the institutions that you are presenting right now. And thank you for minding the time, because I know it's a challenge talking about taxonomy in a short way, but you were very straight to the point so that we could fulfill our agenda. And I would like to thank, on behalf of FEBRABAN, for your participation in this panel. I would like to thank our audience and everybody who's following us virtually. Okay? Thank you very much.